Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving headfirst into one of the most chilling, profound, and honestly unforgettable ethical case studies ever recorded. We're unpacking a classic piece from the Harvard Business Review by Bowen H. McCoy. Now, this isn't some dry, theoretical thought experiment. It's a true story. It's an intense adventure, and it offers a deep, sometimes uncomfortable look into human behavior that might just fundamentally change how you think about leadership, teamwork, and managing a crisis.
I want you to imagine your friend looking you dead in the eye and asking you this absolutely devastating question. You're not sitting in a comfortable, climate-controlled office. You're at the climax of an exhausting, freezing Himalayan trek. You are literally gasping for thin air, your adrenaline is through the roof, and suddenly, you're hit with the heavy realization that your actions, or more accurately, your inactions, might have just cost a total stranger their life. Well, that is exactly the nightmare scenario Bowen McCoy found himself in.
So, let's get into part one, an unexpected dilemma. We are talking about literal life or death at 15,500 feet.
To really grasp why our narrator made the choices he did that day, you gotta understand the absolute pressure cooker these climbers were in. Their goal was massive, crossing an 18,000-foot Himalayan pass. We're talking a grueling, once-in-a-lifetime physical challenge. But the threat, equally massive. The whole group is battling extreme exhaustion and altitude sickness, which messes with your head, causing disorientation and severe nausea. On top of that, they're racing against a ticking clock. The sun is coming up, and if the snow melts, the path becomes totally impassable. It's an environment of immense, crushing stress that, as you'll see, perfectly mirrors a high-stakes corporate crisis. Everything is on the line, and failure just isn't an option. Plunged right into the middle of this agonizing push for the summit, the group is suddenly hit with a massive, unexpected variable. One of the climbers comes staggering down the ice, and he's got a body slung over his shoulder. It's a Sadhu, an Indian holy man on a pilgrimage. He is nearly naked, freezing, and actively dying of hypothermia right there at 15,500 feet. So right at the exact moment the team is laser-focused on their ultimate target, this dying pilgrim blocks their path. The ultimate intruder has arrived, and he completely shatters their carefully laid plans.
Which brings us to part two, passing the buck, and the anatomy of inaction. Look at this sequence of events because it brilliantly, and frankly terrifyingly, captures the bystander effect in a fragmented group. It's like a tragic relay race. First, the New Zealanders find the Sadhu, carry him down a little bit, and then leave to push for the summit. Next, the Swiss find him, toss him some clothes, and move on. The Japanese give him food and drink. Then McCoy walks up, checks the guy's pulse, sees he's actually alive, but leaves him there to go secure his own summit. Finally, the Sherpas carry him down to a rock in the sun, but they refuse to jeopardize their own safety to carry him all the way down to a village. Notice a pattern here? Every single group did just a tiny bit to help. They all passed the problem along until the Sadhu was just left behind to an unknown fate. Not a single person took ultimate responsibility.
McCoy and his friend Stephen fiercely debated this exact point later on. McCoy tries to justify his actions by pointing out the extreme danger they were all in, and he asks Stephen a really pointed question. Where is the limit of our responsibility in a situation like this? It's a fascinating question, right? And it's one that echoes in boardrooms all over the world when a crisis hits. Think about it. If you're pushing hard for a critical Q4 goal and a sudden ethical gray area pops up, how much of your own hard-earned success do you sacrifice to fix a problem that isn't technically yours?
And this brings us face to face with a harsh reality. Does doing just enough actually absolve you of the fundamental problem? Throwing a sweater and some snacks at a dying man obviously isn't saving him. If everyone in a company throws a little bit of money or a temporary band-aid fix at a huge systemic issue without actually solving it, can that group truly claim they acted ethically? McCoy's friend Stephen argued absolutely not. Leaving a dying man on a mountain just because it's inconvenient is a failure, no matter how many sweaters you dress him in first.
Let's transition into part three. Individual versus group ethics, or what we can call a complete breakdown in consensus.
This whole disaster illustrates the vast, incredibly dangerous chasm between individual morals and group action. McCoy hits the nail on the head here when he realizes, as a group we had no process for developing a consensus. We had no sense of purpose or plan. Look, these climbers weren't evil villains. They were Christians, Quakers, respected business leaders, people with strong personal morals. But as a group of strangers from different backgrounds without a designated leader, they completely failed. When the pressure got dialed up, their collective ability to act cohesively just disintegrated.
Let's contrast these two ideas because it builds a crucial framework for us. On one side, you have the individual ethic. That's doing your bit, relying on your own personal morals, but ultimately having a very limited physical and emotional capacity to handle a massive crisis all by yourself. On the other side, you have the corporate ethic. This requires shared values, agreed-upon processes, and unified leadership. While an individual might have a strong moral compass, a group simply cannot function effectively without a shared corporate ethic tying them all together.
Because here is the undeniable truth. Under intense pressure, groups without a unified plan fragment. They shatter into a bunch of individuals acting strictly in their own immediate self-interest. Without a predefined system to lean on, people instinctively bail out of a crisis to protect themselves. They just want to survive the freezing mountain. Or in the business world, they just want to hit their quarterly targets. This is exactly why the Sadhu was left to die on the ice, and it's exactly why companies implode when hit with unexpected ethical dilemmas.
So, how do we fix this? That brings us to part 4, building a corporate culture that goes way beyond the usual buzzwords.
If we step off the mountain and into the executive suite, we have to rethink what corporate culture actually means. It is a heritage of mutually accepted, shared values that guide decision-making and provide a concrete process for dealing with adversity and ambiguity. True corporate culture isn't about glossy mission statements on the wall or ping-pong tables in the break room. It's the absolute lifeline that keeps an organization from completely unhinging when subjected to massive stress. It's what tells an employee exactly what to do when they find a metaphorical dying pilgrim blocking their big project.
If you want your team to handle an unexpected Sadhu correctly, you've got to establish these non-negotiable prerequisites long before the storm hits. You absolutely need mutually accepted shared values. You need a clear process for developing consensus, like how do we actually make a call when the rulebook is completely blank? You need leadership that the entire group believes in, and critically, you need institutional support for individuals who are facing these tough dilemmas.
That last point about support is huge. To truly support individuals facing dilemmas, managers need the guidelines of an agreed-upon process and set of values to actually feel safe. People need to know that if they pause their metaphorical climb to do the right thing, maybe that's stopping a faulty product line or reporting a compliance issue, the larger organization is going to have their back rather than punishing them for missing a financial target. Because without that safety net, they're just going to keep climbing right past the problem.
Which leads us into our final section, Part 5, Taking a Stand and Facing the Sadhu in the Boardroom.
Ultimately, the author emphasizes one incredibly powerful question. When do we actually take a stand? Because, let's be real, true moral dilemmas are almost never black and white. They are messy, they are deeply ambiguous, and they force us to decide just how much we are truly willing to sacrifice for a stranger, for an ideal, or for a core principle.
See, in the business world, the Sadhu represents every sudden, ambiguous crisis that tests an organization's true character and shared values. He isn't just a guy on a mountain. He is the unexpected market crash. He's the sudden, terrifying PR disaster. He is the ethical gray area that intrudes right on your daily goals, stops your momentum dead in its tracks, and demands a unified, principled response. And if your organization hasn't practiced its response to the Sadhu, I guarantee you it will fail when he finally appears.
So, as we wrap up this explainer, I really want you to think about your own organization's culture and its readiness for the unexpected. Do you have a shared, reliable process, or is it just a bunch of individual ambition running the show? I'm going to leave you with this final, vital question to chew on. When do we allow a Sadhu to intrude into our daily lives? How much of our own goals are we genuinely willing to risk to do the right thing when no one else is stepping up? Thank you so much for exploring this fascinating case study with me today.